Today, we're going to dive into the incredible, century-long engineering quest hidden inside something most of us do without a second thought: filling up the car. I mean, it seems so simple, right? But behind that simple act is an amazing story of fire, physics, and some seriously relentless problem solving.
So, let me ask you something. Just think for a second about all the tech you handle on a regular basis. Your phone, your TV remote, your car key. What do you think is the most cleverly engineered device you use every single week? Well, the answer just might surprise you, because there's a really good chance it's the humble gas pump nozzle. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and uncover the hidden story of how the gas station went from being a ticking time bomb to the ultra-efficient everyday pit stop we know today. All right, to really get this, we've got to jump in the time machine and rewind the clock. We're going back to a time before gas stations were even a thing, when getting fuel for your car was a completely different and much riskier ballgame. You see, in the very early days of the automobile, cars actually ran on kerosene. And to get it, you'd have to go to a hardware store. An employee would fill up a can for you, and then you'd have to pour it into your car yourself, probably with a funnel. As you can imagine, this was super slow, unbelievably messy, and with flammable liquid sloshing around everywhere, yeah, it was just plain dangerous. So the first big breakthrough comes from an inventor named Sylvanus Bowser. He created this hand-driven pump that could dispense exactly 1 gallon of fuel with a single crank. This brilliant invention took fueling out of the back of a hardware store and put it right on the city streets, where attendants could fill up cars directly. But, solving one problem almost always creates another one, right? And this time, it was a problem of trust. With the fuel going directly from some hidden container straight into their car, customers had absolutely no way of knowing if they were actually getting the full gallon they just paid for. The solution was honestly brilliantly simple: the visible fuel pump. It was genius. An attendant would first pump the fuel up into a big, marked glass cylinder on top of the pump, showing you, see, you got the right amount. Then they'd open a valve and let gravity do the rest. Just like that, transparency restored trust. So these curbside pumps? Yeah, they were a total game changer. But here's the thing about success: it often brings a whole new world of problems. And as the number of cars on the road completely exploded, that's exactly what happened. I mean, just look at these numbers. The scale of this change was just staggering. In 1900, you've got only 8,000 cars in the entire United States. Fast forward just 12 years later, and that number has skyrocketed to 1.2 million. The old way of doing things just wasn't gonna cut it. All of a sudden, you've got these massive traffic jams piling up around a single curbside pump. The little 50-gallon tanks they used were constantly running dry. And maybe worst of all, having barrels of highly flammable fuel sitting right there on the sidewalk, well, it was a recipe for absolute disaster. And then, in 1913, we get the big idea. The Gulf Oil Company in Pittsburgh came up with a groundbreaking solution: get the fuel off the street entirely. They buried these huge storage tanks safely underground and then connected them to multiple pumps above. And just like that, the world's first dedicated driving gas station was born. This idea it took off like wildfire. Soon, more than 150,000 of these stations popped up all across the country. And for the very first time, people really had the freedom to travel almost anywhere they wanted, knowing that they could always find a place to refuel along the way. But right as the gas station is becoming a fixture of American life, another big shift was happening. Cars were switching from kerosene to a much more efficient fuel: gasoline. And with gasoline came a new, invisible, and frankly, a far more dangerous villain: vapor. Okay, so here's the critical thing you have to understand. It's called the flash point. That's the temperature where a liquid gives off enough vapor to catch fire. For kerosene, it's pretty high, 38 degrees Celsius. But for gasoline, it's -40. That means gasoline is always giving off highly flammable vapor at pretty much any temperature you'll ever experience. Now, this new danger became a huge problem when the next evolution came along. As competition between gas stations got fierce, owners were looking for any way they could to lower prices, and that led to the very first self-service station in 1947. Now, this was a fantastic deal for customers, but it was a massive headache for safety engineers. And you can see why it was so appealing. By just getting rid of the paid attendant, a station owner could drop the price from 23 cents a gallon all the way down to 18 cents. I mean, that's a huge discount. But the idea of untrained customers handling this super dangerous liquid seemed so crazy that self-service was actually banned in most of the country.
And you know what? The critics were right. The #1 problem was spills. All the time. Without a trained attendant, regular folks just had no real way of knowing when their tank was about to be full. So they'd constantly overfill, spilling gasoline and all those flammable vapors all over the place.
So, to make self-service safe for everybody, this wasn't going to take a few warning signs. No, this was going to take a stroke of pure engineering genius. And that brings us to the modern era, and honestly, the most fascinating piece of this entire puzzle, the automatic shutoff nozzle. Okay, this thing is basically a purely mechanical magic trick. It uses zero electronics. It all starts with something called the Venturi effect. As fuel rushes through the nozzle, it creates a little low-pressure zone that sucks air in through a tiny pipe right at the tip. Okay, now here's the really cool part. When the rising gasoline in your tank covers up that tiny pipe, the airflow gets blocked, but the suction doesn't stop. Instead, it creates a vacuum inside this little sealed chamber, which pulls up on a flexible diaphragm. That tiny movement is just enough to let a set of ball bearings drop out of place, which causes the whole handle mechanism to collapse, and a spring instantly snaps the main valve shut. Click. All in a fraction of a second. It's a brilliant, brilliant system that makes it pretty much impossible to overfill your car.
And the genius doesn't stop at the nozzle. It continues deep underground. You know those old steel tanks? They'd eventually rust and leak fuel into the ground, which is a huge environmental problem. Today's tanks are made of non-corroding fiberglass. They have automatic flapper valves that slam shut when a delivery truck fills them to 95% capacity. And what about all those dangerous vapors? Well, a second hose actually pushes those vapors from the underground tank back into the delivery truck, where they're taken away to be cooled down and turned back into liquid fuel. Nothing is wasted.
So what's the result of all this incredible engineering? Well, it's this number, 3 billion. That's roughly how many gallons of fuel are pumped safely and efficiently around the world every single day. It's just amazing when you think about it. What started out as this dangerous, messy chore with cans and funnels has, through 100 years of relentless step-by-step problem solving, become one of the most safe and, let's be honest, boring parts of modern life. It is a true triumph of hidden engineering.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? We have spent over a century perfecting the art of delivering gasoline. So, as we start looking toward the next generation of energy sources, be it hydrogen, electricity, or something else, what incredible new engineering marvels will we need to invent to make them just as safe, efficient, and simple to use as the gas station is today?